The story we're watching for you this afternoon is about the United States accusing South Africa of providing ammunition to Russia. Its ambassador to South Africa, Reuben Brigety, says they have proof that a Russian ship that docked at Simonstown's naval base in December left with weapons and ammunition. The Democratic Alliance in Parliament saying that this is a chilling and a deeply troubling confirmation that President Matamela Ramaphosa and his government are actively involved in the Russian Federation's war on Ukraine. Our reporter Ayesha Ismail has got Mr. John Steenhuisen with her this afternoon after the end of that Q&A session of the President in Parliament, where Mr. Steenhuisen, Ayesha, did put the question about that Russian vessel Lady R in Simonstown in Parliament, and the President did not want to answer, basically saying it's a new question, and as protected by the Speaker, Nosiviwe Maphosa Nqakula, he can choose to answer or not to answer. But all he said was vaguely, we are looking into the matter.
Yes, of course, and the President saying that the matter is being investigated. But John Steenhuisen, the leader of the opposition, says he is not happy with the response that he got to the President, and he will be taking it further. Mr. Steenhuisen, the President saying that the matter is being investigated, there is a process, and you need to wait for that process to unfold. What next?
I don't believe the President. I think he's misled the House. It's almost half a year since the Lady R departed. If there was an investigation, it would surely have yielded something by now. And how is it that other people have been able to get to the truth before we have been able to get to the truth here in South Africa? I think the President was playing possum and trying to buy time. I don't think there's an investigation underway, and otherwise he would have been able to give us progress reports on it. I think they know what happened there, and I think they have deliberately tried to avoid it. Now it has come out, and they've got a lot of questions to answer.
But this was not the first time that you asked this question.
No, for the last 2 years, since my visit to Ukraine, I have been putting in regular questions to both the President and the Minister of Defence, probing whether weapons of war, whether war materials were being sold by South Africa into Russia. There have been repeated denials that this was ever taking place, and it now looks like a different story has begun to emerge, and that the ANC and its government have been covering up the fact that they have been supplying arms to a war-ravaging region so that Russia could perpetrate its war of aggression on the sovereignty of Ukraine.
As an opposition party, what are you going to do about this?
So the first thing we're going to do is call for the President to fire the Defence Minister. If this is true, he must do that immediately. Secondly, he must make sure that the nation is taken into the confidence as quickly as possible. This is not something that can linger. We are in the midst of very delicate trade negotiations already around AGOA. We already have a number of other trade rounds with our European Union partners, and these are South Africa's largest trading partners. And if we were to be dropped or sanctioned, there will be disastrous consequences for jobs and our local economy. So the President needs to come out very quickly, put all the facts on the table, unlike the way he handled Pala Pala, and we need to see some responsive government and some heads rolling. We've also called for a snap debate in the National Assembly so that Parliament can be allowed to do its function, and where we can ask questions of the ministers concerned why that we were misled in the questions that we had put to them, and why they have been complicit in what looks like a major cover-up that's going to have massive geopolitical implications for South Africa.
Now, the President also, or most of the President's debate, Q&A rather, was taken up by issues of power and electricity. Were you happy with the way the President answered his questions about how he and the Minister of Electricity is dealing with South Africa's power crisis?
No, I'm not. And I think that any South African who's currently being load shed as this program is being aired, and who faces the prospect of stage 7, 8 and 9 still to come, doesn't buy what the President is selling. Remember, this is the same President who told us in 2015 that in 18 months' time, all of our problems with energy will be a thing of the past. We now sit here in 2023 with the worst load shedding the country's ever had. Clearly, the interventions by government are not working, and as long as government keeps its big clunking fist of state on the means of producing electricity and distributing it and running it as a monopoly, we're going to continue with this problem. They need to open up the industry immediately to anybody who can provide electricity and to be able to sell it into the grid, and they should be incentivizing people to do so.
Thank you so much for your time, and that was the Democratic Alliance leader and the leader of the opposition, John Steenhuisen.
Thank you very much, Ayesha Ismail, there outside Parliament or in the parliamentary precinct at the end of that question and answer session earlier today that involved the president. I mean, two main issues really coming out of this is the one around the energy crisis and the kinds of questions the president was faced with, and the one about Lady R, a Russian vessel that docked at Simonstown Naval Base late last year on December, and allegedly then loaded weapons and ammunition for Russia. And the claim has been made by the American ambassador to South Africa, Mr. Brigety. Now, the DA says they want to call on the president to fire the defense minister, Thandi Modise, immediately over this. And they don't believe what the president told Parliament today, that there is an investigation that is ongoing, because it's almost 6 months later since that issue was raised about Lady R.